ये जो आप बिल ला रहे हैं, आप देश को बांटने का काम कर रहे हैं, जोड़ने का काम नहीं कर रहे हैं।
ये मंदिर से कहाँ उसका मतलब है? कोई धर्म के नाम पर बंटवारा नहीं हो रहा है। ये भ्रम फैलाना चाहते हैं।
भाजपा अपने हताश, निराश,
आप तो उस कानून
चंद कट्टर समर्थकों के तुष्टीकरण के लिए ये बिल लाने का काम कर रही है।
And भैया, I just don't know क्या होगा इस देश का.
Why are you so frustrated, man? Things are going well only, right?
I was just watching this news and now there is this new drama of some Waqf Board. There is this religion going on all the time.
Yeah, religion and politics is fine, but we should all be concerned about what's happening with the Waqf Board and the Waqf Act. It's a very important thing actually.
But isn't it just a religious issue and they are just doing politics over it? Like, why are you saying that we should be concerned about it?
Because you are thinking about it in a very narrow fashion, right? Religion and politics is completely separate. Let's leave that aside.
Okay.
But the Waqf issue is something that should concern all of us. Why? Because Waqf is not about Muslims' religion or their faith, but it's about land and property and the ability of people to, actually enjoy their land and take revenue out of it. So it's not a simple issue of, there are hundreds of thousands of properties that all are Muslim properties. Okay, so just because they're Muslim doesn't mean that we shouldn't think about it, because the Waqf thing is actually something that concerns all of us.
So how come this is not just a, religion politics, typical religion politics that keeps on happening? And like, what is this Waqf? Just explain it to me.
So Waqf is not just an issue that concerns Muslims because it is a property issue. Right? And Waqf means that any property that is given in the name of Allah. So both Muslims and non-Muslims, according to after the UPA passed the 2013 Act actually, both Muslims and you and me can also donate land to Waqf. But more important than that is that Waqf is just a form of trust. Okay? So and trusts, whatever sort of trust that exists for everybody else is also regulated. Right? Okay. So Waqf, if you think about it, is not an issue of religion. It is not an issue that is concerned with, the religious rights of Muslims or of any group. It is more concerned with land and its utility, right? So it is not a simple question of, Muslims are doing their religion. It's not a question of their faith. It's not a question of namaz. It's not a question of, how many times they should pray, or forget that. It's not even a question of personal law. Okay. It's a question of revenue, land and how it's used. So, the issue of land concerns all of us, right?
Okay, but just a brief, detour. But there are these news, no? They claim some village, they claim something like that. How is it even possible? I think this is just propaganda, nothing else. Like, is there some reality to it?
Of course, there is reality to it. So one thing that we should all know is that one thing that makes Waqf unique in our legal system is that a Waqf's land claim never extinguishes. So you actually could see, if you go to the, Waqf Board's websites, almost every state Waqf Board's website, there's actually saying, once a Waqf, always a Waqf. Okay?
Is it?
Yes. Because in the Islamic religious conception, if a Waqf is donated, regardless of how old it is, how old the claim is, that claim continues forever. Okay? So, and our law recognizes that, by the way. So there is this very onerous provision, there is very bad provision in the current act called Section 40. Okay. Vote to unilaterally claim any piece of land, any piece of property as their own. And once they claim it, you cannot litigate. Suppose you own some land, you've owned some land for hundreds of thousands of years, right? But some Mughal emperor might have donated this land to Waqf long back, right?
Okay.
And then the Waqf Board will wake up one day and claim your land. And this is not something that is fake. It has happened to the Surat Municipal Corporation office. Do you know that? Yeah.
Like they took a government office, like they claimed a government office.
They claimed the government office.
And how come is it possible? Like, what if I have documents for my land? How can somebody come and just claim it randomly out of nowhere?
So I'll just give the Surat wala example. I'll also talk about the Tamil Nadu one. Okay? But the Surat one is very interesting. They claim that one of Jahangir's daughter's aides, had the property of what is now the Surat Municipal Corporation was given as Waqf in the 17th century.
And
the Gujarat
century.
Yes, in the 17th or 18th century. And the Gujarat Waqf Board claimed this property recently in 2020, 2021. Okay.
Seriously?
Yes. And it was
centuries after.
Yes. And the tribunal ruled in favor, I believe. And then only the High Court struck it down and said, obviously, this is a crazy claim. The municipal corporation has been, functioning out of there for so many years. And I'll tell you another example. All of you might have seen the Tamil Nadu one, right? The 1,500-year-old temple.
Talking about the news. Yeah.
Yes. So this Tamil Nadu one is also something like this. This is a temple property. There's a temple property that's been there for 1,200, 1,500 years from the Chola times, right? But the Nawab of our court, at some point in history, apparently donated this land as Waqf. Okay. So when I think a farmer was trying to sell his land for his daughter's marriage, the Waqf Board came out of the blue and said, you cannot sell this land. And that poor man couldn't sell his land. And, the entire village was in fact supposedly owned by Waqf. So this is the problem with Waqf and the Waqf Act. Because for long periods of our history, right, we all know, Muslim rulers were there. And they gave a lot of land out as Waqf, right? And this resulted in swaths of land, both in Delhi, in Hyderabad, in almost every part of this country being Waqf. And as I said, once a Waqf, always a Waqf.
So it's like, they also are the third biggest landowner in the country, I think.
Yes. So it would be more accurate to say that the third biggest land regulator. Okay.
Regulator.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's one big difference here. Waqfs are individual properties.
Okay.
With individual mutawalis or individual managers. Okay.
Managers, mutawalis.
Yes.
Okay.
They're there. But the Waqf boards as a whole, and this is something the Sacha Commission also said, by the way, they own lakhs and lakhs of acres of land, but they earn only 200 or 200 crore or something as revenue. So there is something wrong with how Waqf land is being utilized.
So tell me one thing. So this is a land of Muslims. Okay. Waqf land is of Muslims mostly. Regulated by Waqf, but land of Muslims.
More or less.
And it is not helping them at all, you are saying.
Yes. It is
and
not.
This is what the Sachar committee.
Yeah, Sachar Commission. Okay. Which is, by the way, not done by, the supposed BJP government. It was done by the UPA government, right? It's a very controversial committee, of course. But even that commission notes how the Waqfs were completely mismanaged, right?
Okay. Tell me something about it. What is the mismanagement about?
Okay, so I'll give you one very simple example.
Okay.
Right? There were, 123. Do you want example of mismanagement or do you want example of?
Tell me, it's seeming, quite mind-boggling. I'm still processing what's happening. Randomly claiming. Just tell me everything about it.
Okay, so what makes Waqfs unique is that, as I said, they're able to claim land by themselves.
Okay.
Right? And this allows them to go around and claim, just like the Surat Municipal Corporation example or the Tamil Nadu temple example. Okay. They're able to go around claiming land without any sort of recourse for the common man, right?
Okay.
So
I cannot even go to the court for this.
You cannot go to court. So
what is this? Where is the right to justice and constitutional remedies, all that? What?
Yeah. So you can go to a Waqf tribunal. Okay. There's a tribunal.
What is Waqf tribunal like?
It's another tribe. It's something set up under the Act. Okay. With 2 to 3 lawyers in it, 2 to 3 judges in, 2 to 3 judges in it. But it's again, if you want to go against the Waqf tribunal, you have to go to the High Court. Okay. You cannot go. You don't have the remedy of going to a civil court, right? Suppose there's a dispute between the both of us, right? Suppose there's a dispute between both of us on this pen, right? And you you hold this pen, but I want to challenge you for this property.
Okay.
I will file a civil suit in the local court, right? It's not instantaneously that I get property.
This property, is my favorite pen.
But because I'm Waqf, I can just claim this pen.
Okay.
And then I can keep it for myself, and the only recourse that you have is to go to a tribunal and try and get it back.
Okay. Now tell me,
but because I'm a decent man, I'm giving you back my pen.
In that tribunal, are there people who will be listening to me? Who are these people? What is this tribunal constituent of? Who are the people there?
The tribunal is appointed by the state government.
Okay.
Now it can consist both of Muslims and non-Muslims.
Okay.
But it's again a body that it's not a civil. It has the powers of a civil court, but it doesn't follow the procedure of a civil court, right?
Okay.
So it's a very different sort of setup to a to when you normally want to claim a property or you normally have some sort of a dispute on title. It's a very different setup. So this results in a lot of issues if your land is being claimed as Waqf's land, right?
Okay.
Now I'll give you some examples of misappropriation, right? Misappropriation, just now, recently, Amanatullah Khan was arrested.
Yeah, the AAP MLA.
Yes, the AAP
Delhi
MLA.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Now he's obviously going around claiming that he is, he's being hunted down and whatnot.
Okay.
But what he did is something that has happened across Waqf boards across the country. Okay, so he basically took bribes for people to be appointed into Waqf boards. So so this is something that is recruitment scams. These Waqf recruitment scams are a whole saga unto itself. So almost every state, Waqf boards and Waqf chairperson, and this is across, of course, we know that corruption is an endemic issue.
Okay.
But what makes Waqf boards much more different is because there's corruption at all levels, right? So there's corruption starting from the encroachment level. So if you're the local manager of a Waqf, right, you make more money by illegally subleasing your property and not showing the Waqf board money. Or the Waqf board and you will both collude and lease out your property for a lot more money, right, than what is shown in actual records. Okay, so this has been a perennial issue. And the UPA government tried to solve it by creating more and more strict law, right?
Okay.
But that has not worked out. And even today, even the NDA government tried to do some things by, putting out new lease rules and things like that. But even today, Waqf land, from top to bottom, whether it be recruitment scams at the top, Waqf boards randomly claiming property, or even the Mutawali's corruption or the collusion of corruption between the state Waqf boards and the Mutawalis are all leading to a systematic corruption in this system, right? So in the beginning, I said, Sacha Commission had this huge report, and you said, third largest land regulator or person who holds the third largest land. It's extraordinary that they own lakhs and lakhs and acres of land. If it's prime real estate. So if you look at it actually, Hotel Windsor Manor in Bangalore. Have you heard of that hotel? It's an
I
ITC
have been
hotel.
to Bangalore, but haven't seen that hotel.
Yeah, it's a very famous hotel in Bangalore.
Okay,
that's actually on Waqf land. Do you know that?
Seriously?
Yeah.
So what happens if Waqf comes and says this is our place and randomly they can take it, claim it?
No, in that case it was not randomly claimed. But that particular piece of land was Waqf land and they had rented out for super cheap. Right? It was only...
Just a second.
Yeah.
So Waqf is created for a religious purpose.
Yes.
But now here there is a hotel on it. And now...
Not just a hotel. I mean, there's a hotel Marriott in Hyderabad that's also, by the way, supposedly Waqf property. Okay?
Seriously?
Yes. And there are around 123 places in Delhi that are Waqf property.
Okay.
And when you think about Waqf property, the first thing that might come into your mind is mosque. But it's not. Most of these places are actually commercial. A lot of these places are commercial land.
Isn't it by definition wrong? By definition, Waqf is something that is created for a religious purpose or for Allah. And how's, a hotel being built on that or a shop being rented on it, serving the purpose of Allah? If you can elaborate on that.
So the land itself is given to Allah. Okay. That's a concept in Islamic law, right? But that doesn't mean that the property cannot be used for other purposes.
Okay.
So the thing is that just like I said, just like Islamic rulers across eons have given out land to Waqf, this has created a situation where even property that might have legitimately transacted over years, which will be commercial property, are Waqf, right? And the Waqf might not be handling, actually be aware of the fact that this is commercial property that is being rented out, so much revenue is being generated because either the Mutawali is corrupt or the Waqf board is corrupt or both of them are corrupt together.
Okay.
Or
it's like an entire nexus operating in the name of Waqf.
And more importantly, nobody has any clue how many Waqf properties actually there.
Okay, so isn't there some database, some record of it, and how is it what is the whole mechanism through which it is operating, and who can when they claim some land, there should be some survey about it. There should be, even the government should do you said it is a statutory body. So also one more question. Who are these people? So you said there was a recruitment scam by the AAP MLA.
Yeah.
So are these people, are these government posts which are being given to these people, or, these people, are they getting government jobs by that scam?
Yes, they are. Because
and they are paid that salary, they are paid government salary.
They're paid hefty government salary. They enjoy the benefits because it's a government body. Okay, Waqf Board is not an independent body. It's a government statutory body that is funded by the state government and sometimes by the central government, because they also have funds for this, right?
Okay.
Now coming to the issue of records, right? Land records in India is generally a very problematic issue.
Yeah, it's a
right?
mess.
But Waqfs are unique. Again, why? Because Waqfs can claim any land of property of land that was at any point a Waqf. Once a Waqf, always a Waqf.
Always above.
So that means that because the land records are a mess, this allows Waqf to use a lot of historical claims to utilize land. Now I'll tell you something that might boil your blood.
Okay.
About evacuee properties or what we call enemy property. So a lot of people.
Evacuee property, right? We are going back to the independence time
Yes,
now.
we are going to independence time. Yeah, right. So what happened is when when partition happened, a lot of people left from India and went to Pakistan, both East Pakistan and West Pakistan, right? A lot of property was left abandoned.
Okay.
Now these properties were called evacuee or enemy property, right? So over time, actually, even though they were evacuee property, right? These properties eventually ended up with Waqf by reason of law, because the government post-validated and made sure that these evacuee properties who were once held by Waqfs continue to be held by Waqfs and not come into evacuee property. You know why this is important? Because what the government did is when the property was left here, they utilized the evacuee property or this enemy property to rehabilitate the Hindus, the Sikhs.
They should have.
Yes, Christians who came into the country from what parts became Pakistan, right? But by, retrospectively, they changed these evacuee property back into Waqf. So this led to a situation where the property that was supposed to be used for the refugees ended up being back into Waqf.
So those people were thrown out of those properties.
They were either thrown out, they were given encroachment notices, and in some cases, because of the collusion between the Mutawali, they might have been able to continue in those properties. Yeah. But at the end of the day, their status became illegal. The property that they might have gotten would have become illegal. So this is the sort of appeasement that they try to do.
So basically, it should have ideally been government property after those people left, and those properties should have been used to rehabilitate people.
Yes.
But now that government property is being given back to the Waqf in the name of religion, and that property is now being used for like a number of purposes.
Yes. So even more crazily, even I'll tell you something even more crazy. In 2014, when this last UPA government was about to go out of power, they actually notified 123 properties in Delhi, prime property.
123 properties in Delhi.
Yes, 123 evacuee properties, near Connaught Place, near Parliament House, near the...
Seriously, that posh region of Delhi.
The posh region of Delhi, where you would see properties, worth crores and crores, thousands of... I don't know how the property rates are now, but crores of rupees. Those properties were converted into Waqf, were given back to Waqf. And it was only after this government came that they decided, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. And this case is, by the way, still going on in Delhi High Court. The Waqf Board still claiming that property is there.
So the government
Can Waqf Board.
So the government has to fight for its own land.
Yes.
With the Waqf Board, which is itself a government body.
Yes.
This is so mashed up.
Think about this. The Gujarat Waqf Board claimed the body of the Surat Municipal Corporation. It ended up with correct with the tribunal only corrected it, but the tribunal ended up striking it down. But think about it. That's the sort of thing.
Even the claim is outrageous.
Yes. The claim comes from Jahangir's daughter's aid.
Yeah.
Apparently using that as revenue land.
That's how they used to pay their people.
Yes.
Like
because all property, and this is why revenue is called revenue, okay? Because the revenue department in states technically does not deal with the actual revenue of the state. It actually deals with the revenue from land or land regulation.
Okay.
Right? So, because all these properties were donated again and again by Muslim rulers to Waqf, this ended up creating, so many situations where Waqf becomes the holder of this land.
Okay.
So now tell me, would you think that, third largest land regulator doing all this stuff with all this extraordinary power to claim land, take it for themselves, regardless of how historical or ahistorical their claim is, do you not think that we should concern about it?
Yes, of course. It's crazy.
Yes.
I'm not even able to comprehend still. Despite all sort of laws being there, property laws, all of that is there. Right to justice is being denied here. So I am not getting it, to be honest. So this act has been going on for so long, and there has been change in government, and so wasn't there any attempt to amend it and to make it more robust and somehow, that making way, and how we have come to this now, the new amendment that has come now, and what are the changes and how only this one has created this much, hullabaloo from everywhere.
Oh, okay. So the thing is that right before this right before the UPA government went out of power in 2014, they passed another act in 2013. Okay. Another thing that meant to make encroachers more and more encroachers. It made more difficult for encroachment to happen. Okay, for Waqf, they basically try to create more stringent situations and try to act very strictly against encroachers. But what it did is, you remember the evacuee property wala issue?
Yeah.
It affected them also. And one more thing here is that because the Mutawali and the state Waqf boards are corrupt, that people who are living in Waqf property or renting out Waqf property could be poor Muslims, right? A lot of them are poor Muslims because Waqf property might be concentrated in Muslim-dominated areas, in urban or rural areas, right? Yeah. So the ultimate benefactors of this might be Muslims themselves, right?
Okay.
But like Muslims renting out shops, Muslims living in Waqf property, etc., right? Or the local mosque could be a Waqf. But because of the corruption in the system, both at the Mutawali level and the state Waqf board level, even if you make the law more and more strict for quote-unquote encroachers, because of the collusion between Mutawalis, the managers and the Waqf board, etc., it actually makes life more difficult for people who might want or might be living in a legal situation, right? Or might be thinking that they're living in a legal way, but are living in a, because of how the act is framed, they might lose everything if the Waqf board one day decides to throw them out. Right? Okay. So this actually creates problems for poorer Muslims as well, right?
So this is like quite opaque and there is no way to, get into it. Yeah.
Yes. So this is actually one more thing that they wanted to do. In 2014, they actually made another act, okay, which would have meant that there would not even be right to be heard. If, for example, you are living in some property and Waqf board decides to act against you, you might not even have the right to be heard before action is taken against you. So that was a sort of proposal that they had in 2014. Okay, before the elections happened. So one thing that the government did once they came back is they completely chucked that bill. They never brought it back. Okay. Then they tried to do land records. So remember when I talked about land records and how it's an issue?
Yeah.
So one thing that they've been consistently trying to do is to digitize every single Waqf land record.
Yeah, right? That way at least we can go and see what's a Waqf.
What is a Waqf, what's not a Waqf, right? That clear demarcation would happen, which will prevent the ability of Waqf boards to randomly claim this that pen of yours if there's no record for it.
Why are you after my pen?
No, I like that pen, man. It looks nice.
Yeah,
you should
that's why
actually
it's my favorite. No.
Okay. So WAMC is Waqf Asset Some Management Portal. I'm sorry, I forgot the full title. Okay. But there's a project that they're trying to do. Central government is trying to do where they're documenting every single piece of Waqf. Okay. So this allows this clear demarcation of, that pen is Prateek's. That's not mine, right? Yeah. So that sort of demarcation can happen. That's one thing they did. They also tried to amend the lease rules, right? And they tried to amend the lease rules so that, again, that issue of how much money are you making through the, renting out of Waqf. Yes, so that Waqf can actually get some money out of the property that they have, right? So that's one other thing they did. Now, this latest proposal is actually a very well thought out one. So what they've done is that they firstly told, if there's any property out there that's Waqf, you need a deed for it. You need to show that this is Waqf.
It has to go through the proper process of registering a land or buying something.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, like if I'm buying if I'm trying to buy that pen.
Okay,
let's change the pen. I think you're too emotionally attached to the pen. Let's say you're buying this diary, right? And this is worth, let's say, 2 crore rupees.
Okay.
Right? So if I'm buying that 2 crore rupee land from you, I would want it registered, right? There's a process I have to follow if I want to buy that land from you. Okay. I can just throw 2 crore rupees at you and claim this land. Mine. Okay. I have to actually go through the process. And that's what's required by law. Okay. So this is the same thing that they're trying to do for Waqf. If, for example, you want to give this for Waqf, you have to actually register it. Which is a very simple thing that you should do. Another thing they're trying to say is, if there's government property out there, it cannot be claimed as Waqf. Okay. Very simple logic. Government property already, it's in records as land, government property, there's no way that this Waqf property.
It is also applicable for the properties which have always been government properties. It's not like they cannot make any new claim, but even the existing claims on the government properties which are existent
are
null and void.
Yes. Yeah. So that means basically then even if this property is being claimed, yes.
Yeah.
So this also allows, by the way, is also applicable to private property. They completely, deny the ability of Waqf Board to randomly claim land. Okay, that's section 40 that I talked about.
Yeah.
Where Waqf Boards can randomly claim land, take it for themselves. That's out.
Okay,
in this
so all the
amendment.
news about, a village with a 1500-year-old temple being claimed.
No longer going to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
And whatever
Instantly-
claims they have made until now on such villages, on such temples.
all of them will end. All of them will extinguish because every Waqf land will need a deed.
Okay. So this is actually a good thing.
Yes.
But everybody is ranting about it. And okay, so you said these are mostly Muslim properties also.
Yeah.
Waqf related properties are mostly Muslim donated properties or owned by them.
Yeah.
And when there is this sort of corruption going on, it is the Muslim community that is being affected by it.
Yes, of course, because at the end of the day, the money generated by the Waqf Board is generally spent for the welfare and this thing of Muslim community only.
So it is doing harm to them, but from whatever news I have read and whatever I have figured out, because it's crazy news, and from whatever I have figured out, I have never seen any opposition from the Muslim community against this. I recently saw just one video which is quite emotional. I sent you that also, if you know. Yeah?
Yes, yeah.
A lady is crying about Waqf Board being, bad to her and all of that.
So I was talking about how Waqf Boards can randomly just claim land, right?
Yeah.
So this lady might have been living in this property, and that's what she's talking about. That, one day morning, she finds out that she's living illegally. So this is the sort of thing that Pora Muslims do have to face. Because if they're
Pura Muslims. Okay, the one who have this Lotus temple in Delhi, that community, right?
Not Bohra, not just Bohra. Like Pora Muslims also. Bohra Muslims also have this issue.
Okay,
and Aga
there are
Khan is
more, there is more representation issue to it.
Yes.
Okay.
So all these smaller sects of Islam, they actually don't get any representation in Waqfs, even though their property can also be considered as Waqf. So because these Pura sections might not go well along with Sunnis and Shias, though we already know. Yeah. But Waqf boards, because of the population and their strength, Sunnis dominate the Waqf boards.
Okay.
Right? So there is a question of these Aga Khanis, Bohras, other groups, right? And women. All of these people also need representation in Waqf boards, right? It's only fair.
Yeah.
The Waqf board should be inclusive. Okay. Like at the end of the day, the government only is regulating it.
Of course.
So it should have a broadest composition of Muslim society and not just one group, right?
Okay.
That's what inclusivity is also about. And this is important because the property again is held or used by all sections of Muslims, especially poorer Muslims. Rich Muslim ko Waqf ka commercial property use kar raha hai, nahi kar raha, that is different, right? Okay. But there might be people who are living in Waqf property.
Actually.
And that lady, for example, is an example of that.
Okay.
So protecting them, making sure that their rights are not violated is also important.
So this act is solving it. The new amendment is solving it.
This new amendment is trying to solve for all those issues.
Okay.
Right? And it's coming out with a much more broader structure so that these Waqf boards are actually turned properly into, we call it good governance, right? Actual good governance is trying to be brought into these Waqf boards, which are top to bottom corrupt at this point.
Okay. And it is being vehemently opposed in the parliament right now from the news we saw.
Because all the people who are who are representing Muslim community, whether we like to talk about it or not, are elites, right? They are social or political elites, and they would have had, they are also benefactors of these Waqf boards and these Waqf properties being used in this manner.
Okay,
right?
so they are basically saving their privileges.
Yes.
Okay.
They're protecting their own rights. They're protecting their own ability to make money. They're protecting their own groups, elites, so to speak, right? Because at the end of the day, Waqf boards ka chairmans, if you look, Aminatullah Khan is a AAP MLA.
Yeah.
If you look at the chairpersons or the chairpersons of Waqf boards across the country, either MPs, MLAs, politically strong people, politically powerful people who are basically utilizing this Waqf property and Waqf land for their own ends. So it is I wouldn't call this a scam end to end.
Okay.
Of course, it's, that's too much of an exaggeration.
Okay.
But Waqf boards, even though they're the third largest property owner, it's very clear that there's a lot of corruption top to bottom. And all of that needs to be cleared out, needs to be sorted out. And that's being attempted to be done through this amendment bill.
Okay, so should we be hopeful that those Muslims who are somehow being affected by it be supportive of these amendments? They should be, I think.
Yes, but then again, we saw the sort of misinformation that went on CAA, right?
Yeah.
So, which basically told Muslims that they're going to lose their citizenship, which was not true.
Yeah, that's not true.
So that's we can remain hopeful, of course.
Okay.
But we should be vigilant against propaganda. And even you at the beginning, you were thinking that this is a communal issue.
Like of course I'll fall for it. Like there is this going on only. It's like the some Hindutva kind of people are opposing it, and they are trying to bring in this act to take
away Muslims' rights.
Yeah.
They're not. If you actually look at it and you actually see it, it's actually trying to make Muslim societies an important part of Muslim laws, this thing better.
Okay. So now this thing is with the, like, it did not pass, I think, yet from the parliament. It's with the JPC, like Joint Parliamentary Committee.
Yes.
So what is this about, and like what's going to happen from here on?
So the JPC is basically a Joint Parliamentary Committee of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members.
Okay.
Right? So it has a broad composition of both the ruling NDA, the opposition, as well as other parties as well. So it's a huge group of, I think, 20 to 30 people from both houses. So what they're doing right now is they're studying the bill.
Okay.
So they're actually invited people to give their opinion on it, and they're going around meeting all people who are concerned with the Waqf in general, whether it be Muslims, non-Muslims, all sort of civil society, normal people like us and you and me can also write to them, by the way, and give our representation about what we think about this amendment bill. So they're actually studying it, and once they come up with the report in Parliament, we will be able to see what they've come up with, what their suggestions are, and a final version of the bill will be introduced by the government, and hopefully it will be passed. So that's the process from the JPC side.
So I'm clear with this, Waqf mess going on right now. But tell me, like, is it just specific, this Waqf kind of thing is specific to the Muslim community only, or is there some Hindu parallels to it also, and how those things function?
Okay, so there are Hindu parallels to it in the sense that there are Hindu religious and charitable endowment acts at various states.
Yeah, different states have
different acts, right? But they're trying to regulate the temples and the temples' property and their rights itself. Okay, they don't have this ability to randomly go and claim, like, let's say the Ram Janmabhoomi Trust, for example, in Ayodhya, that trust cannot randomly claim and take away property. It has a vested right on the property that the Supreme Court has given it. That's it. It doesn't have a random right. Those trusts that have been set up, they don't have the ability to randomly claim land for themselves.
So already existing property, they can manage and talk about
and
it.
That
and
too only when there is a deed, or if historically there's been a temple, right? Like for example, Padmanabha Swami temple has been in Trivandrum for thousands of years, managed by the Travancore royal family.
Yeah.
Right? So like that, if there's a historical claim, that continues. Right?
Okay.
Just like the Jama Masjid in Old Delhi, it continues to be managed by the people who have been managing it for so long. Right? Okay. So just like that, it continues to be managed. But when it comes to Hindu religious trusts, they don't have these rights to claim property for themselves and, extract it. There's no once a temple land, always a temple land sort of philosophy, because a lot of temple land has been alienated also. And you can see a lot of controversy around it in Tamil Nadu, etc., etc. So it's a little more complicated.
There was some controversy in Karnataka, I also remember, like some Waqf scam in Karnataka, some big scam. Like,
oh yeah.
I remember reading it, but I've forgotten. If you can please reflect.
So there was this Anma Madapadi report. I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So this minority commission chairman under the BJP government then, he actually found out that around half of the land, 29,000 of the 54,000 acres that Waqf had at that point, was actually commercial property.
Okay.
Yeah. And
like half of it.
Almost half of it. Yeah.
So the scale of this corruption is like crazy enormous.
No, so the corruption isn't that it is commercial land. What was the corruption is that over 2 lakh crore worth of this property, he found that 2 lakh crore worth of this property had been illegally given out. Okay. And that too, I don't want to make this political, but to Congress politicians and leaders, from the Muslim community, who were enjoying the benefit of Waqf land, but either underpaying it, not paying at all, or encroached on this property. So this was a huge scandal at that point. And the report actually didn't come out because the Congress government refused to publish it. It actually only under the BJP government recently, in the past 5-6 years or so, that it actually came to light. That actual report was tabled in front of the House. So that huge scandal that came out is just an evidence of the fact that Waqf boards are being mismanaged in this humongous fashion from top to bottom.
Okay, so the government which has been brought to power by, largely Muslim support, we can say that, was actually usurping
Muslim land and utilizing it for the purposes of their own leaders, right? Their own leaders were misutilizing this land. And actually, there are a couple of examples from Uttarakhand also. Some Congress MPs, Akbar Ahmad Dumpy, people like that have also recently been accused, or court cases are going on right now. So I don't want to say that they're guilty of it, but they are also being accused of misappropriating Waqf land in Uttarakhand.
Okay.
So if you actually go by every state, this place, you'll actually see every single state there is an issue with how Waqf Board is being managed. There's no ideal state, there's no ideal mechanism so far for this, and that's because the Act itself enables this sort of misgovernance. Yeah. So that's what this amendment is trying to solve for.
Okay, now I get it. I just don't know what all I was thinking in the beginning, and thank you, you explained all of it to me. But if you can, please give a summary of it so that I have it. It's so difficult to process this much information.
Okay.
I want a bit of it,
Okay.
Short summary.
Okay, very simply, Waqf is not about the religious rights or religion of Muslims.
Okay.
It's about land that Muslims have given, or non-Muslims, by the way, can also give land, who have given to Waqf, and their management and their utilization, right? It's so that management and utilization from top to bottom, there's been a lot of corruption. There's 1,500 euro temples that's being claimed as Waqf. There's government property, there's municipal corporations, offices that are being claimed as Waqf. There's so much commercial property out there that is Waqf. Right? So, and there's not being enough money generated out of it because of the collusion, either between the Waqf Board and the managers, or the managers being corrupt, etc., etc. So, it's an actual mafia that exists, or actual corruption that exists from top to bottom. There's misgovernance, there's mismanagement, there's encroachment, right? All these issues have been nibbling at the problem of Waqfs and their utilization. Okay. So, the government is trying to solve it by bringing an amendment called the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024. Oh. That bill is at the Joint Parliamentary Committee level now, where 30-odd MPs are sitting together, discussing the bill, hearing your thoughts, hearing your views as well, public's thoughts and public's views on the bill as well. And they will come up with a report, and the government will come up with a bill based on the report, which will hopefully pass the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha and become a law, and will hopefully change Waqf boards, Waqf authorities for the better.
Okay, so I can hope that you won't be able to claim this pen from me, right?
Because
that's passed.
Yes. Once that passes, I might not be able to claim that pen.
Okay.
But for now, I am taking this pen because it's our property.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.